Here to talk about being a project manager a little bit, something I know all of you know something about, and I'm going to share with you some of the things I know about it, and maybe we'll all walk away a little bit smarter. First of all, I'd like to talk about myself a little bit, because it's one of my favorite subjects. I always enjoy that. I'm a West Virginia native. I grew up down in Summersville, a wide spot in the road in Nicholas County off Route 19. A good place to drive the speed limit, not take liberties with it if you're familiar with that. And a beautiful lake where I grew up, well, hunting, fishing, swimming, boating, all that great stuff. I went to the United States Military Academy at West Point right out of high school. So I graduated high school in '87. I'm not ashamed of my age. I'm proud to mark the half-century mark. I know exactly, like, my God, he's over in dirt. It's all right. You will be too someday. And so after I went there, I got a commission on active duty and became a second lieutenant in the field artillery. And I was on active duty for 22 years. I retired as a lieutenant colonel. Some of my favorite jobs as a platoon leader. I'll tell you some platoon leader stories. Excuse me, as a battery commander, I helped create soldiers out of civilians, which was a great experience. As a battalion XO, second in command of an artillery battalion, about 700 soldiers. A couple deployments to Iraq as well. I got to go back and teach at West Point, which was a great experience, where you do not have disciplinary problems. You don't have students coming late to class. You have students that do their homework every day. You don't have students to talk back. It's a first-class teaching experience. My last assignment was a NATO exercise planner out of Norway with NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. And that's where I had project management experience. I led the design and execution of 2 major exercises in 3 years. Each exercise was about 12 to 13 months from planning to execution. We didn't really call it project management, but I think you'll see we did all the things that you do as a project manager as well. And that's some of the experience that I will draw on and share with you today. During my time, I lived in Germany about 3 years, Iraq, 2 tours in Iraq, and Baghdad specifically. Not my choice of vacation spots. I learned a great deal though. I'll share a little bit about that. Norway for 3 years, which is a wonderful country. A wonderful country, a great place to go. My family loved it, I loved it. I loved the work, I thoroughly enjoyed the people and the culture there as well. But you don't go to Norway for the food, keep that in mind. I retired in 2013. I'm in business now for almost 6 years. Slowly building my business. I do leadership training and development. Some of the clients that you may recognize their names, in addition to Thrasher, of course, that I've done business with. But it's been an uphill. It's a challenge to build a business in West Virginia, that's for certain. And I went from one environment to a radically different one, from the military to the business world. It's been a personal growth. 4 kids, 2 daughters, 2 sons. My oldest just graduated Marshall University, very proud of her. A double major in biochemistry and forensic chemistry. Number 2 is at RCB High School, doing very well as a junior, and that's 2 boys in 11 and 12, and we pray for them. I've been married almost over 27 years now. So some people get rich and then marry their trophy wife. I married my trophy wife and now I'm working on getting rich. So I'm not sure. I'll let you know how it works. So we're talking about project management. So Chad Riley asked me to go to lunch and he was interviewing me about whether I was worthy to present to Thrasher, whether I was good enough to come and present, to share with you. Obviously, I did okay. In the course that he was talking about the company and his designs for the company, and he recognized that project management and project managers are the hub. You are right here. Everything, he wants to build everything in Thrasher to support project management. So the top is there to support you, the bottom is there to support you, and the spokes on the wheel, all the different disciplines within Thrasher. But the project manager is going to be the center of gravity, if you will. He understands that is where the rubber meets the road for the company. Successful project completion, execution. But before you get to execution, do all the other stuff, like the van was talking to you before, about your intelligence prep, about your business development, all those pieces, they're all part of that project plan. Now the reality, this is the way it's supposed to be. As a project manager, a lot of times it feels like this. It feels like you're spinning around the world, and it can be dizzying because there's a lot going on. And you're working with people you may know well, you may not know as well. You're going to be dealing with people whose area of expertise is radically different than yours. And in order to make that work, you've got to forge those relationships. So the title of project manager, and before we go too deep into that, well, I'd like to talk a little bit different about the difference between management and leadership. And they're not the same, and we could write a book about it. I'm going to sum it up in about 2 slides very quickly. You manage material. You manage processes. Those are things, but you lead people. And the reality is, as you probably deduce the next bullet, people are who execute those processes. The problem comes is when you start managing people, when you start talking or treating people like inanimate objects that are wholly fungible, right? You just substitute at will. They don't, personalities don't matter, their desires don't matter. You cause a lot of problems. And the old compare and contrast slide, I love this because it helps build that picture. Managers, you determine how to get things done. Critically important. And make no mistake, management is every bit as important as leadership. Make no mistake. I focus on leadership because that's kind of my area of expertise. But you cannot do one without the other. Managers allocate resources we talked about. They're objective, and this is an important part. We're going to talk about emotions in a little bit. Management is objective. It's simply assigning numbers and resources. So you may manage man-hours, per se. That's one thing. But people are different. But management is a very objective exercise, emotion-free. Obviously, plan, organize. Managers focus on doing things right, which is important. You have to get things right. Leaders, on the other hand, are about the bigger picture of purpose. This is especially important for younger employees. It's always important. But what society and what businesses are finding right now more than ever is that younger employees want to make their work meaningful. The fact that they get a paycheck and they have a job is not sufficient. And I'm not into millennial bashing, although it can be pretty fun. The reality is, the young workers have grown up in a world that my generation and my parents' generation created for them. So before we start pointing fingers at them, the older people in the room, I see 1 or 2 people may have a gray hair or 2, they've grown up in a world that we created for them. We need to keep that in mind before we start bashing them too badly. But what they have, what younger people now have grown up in an era where they have more choices. Many times when we were coming of age, it was, I gotta have a job. Woohoo! Younger people now are much more concerned about getting the right job, a job that fits them, a job that they find satisfying to them. And that's much different. And it's also the benefit of a roaring economy with record unemployment, record lows in unemployment. So workers do have more choices right now. 5 years, 10 years from now, it may not be that way, but right now, and for the past several years, it has been. It's important for us to realize that. One of the reasons I like working with Thrasher is, one, to the varsity. You're a top-notch company. You would not be in this room if you were not an A player. You are on the varsity team by virtue of who you work with. They don't hire minor leaguers. But one of the reasons I really like Thrasher is I took this from their website. They get it. They get it. That's the mission of Thrasher. They understand it's more than just dominating the world of engineering consulting and engineering management. They get it. It's about building better communities. My first tour in Iraq, I was in Baghdad, and my unit sector was Eastern Baghdad, which encompassed Sadr City. that's where he herded the Shias, which Islam broadly splits into two major components, Sunni and Shia. And Sadr City was a Shia enclave, and it was a slum. It was horrible. People jam-packed in there, miserably poor. Their sewage treatment plan hadn't changed probably in 1,000 years. There's a hole in the floor that went into a little ditch. Little ditch goes into the big ditch. Big ditch goes into the river. Those people ate, slept, breathed, worked in the constant stench of human excrement. Once in a while, in the rainy season, which was pretty brief, you'd have a good hard rain, kind of flush all the ditches, and you'd have a breath of fresh air, which would last a matter of hours, because obviously people continued to do their business. The #1 infrastructure project the United States Army was putting up was a sewage treatment plant, a massive one. It helped. We thought that would enable the Iraqi people to help lift themselves up out of their current state and improve their lot in life. And that's what you do. Unfortunately, some places, even here in West Virginia, we're not that far removed from those living conditions. My children go to school with kids who don't have running water. Mostly because their parents are making some really bad decisions. But it's not the kids' fault. But that being said, what you do matters every day, and you need to keep that in mind. The second major thing that leaders do is build the team. Building a team is not like putting Legos together, right? Managers can put Legos together. Leaders build a team. 1 + 1 = 3. That's great teamwork. That plus strengthens. It's not the simple addition of a body plus a body. It's that combination working together where the sum is greater. The whole is greater than the sum of the parts. There's an old saying in the Army. Soldiers won't care what you know till they know that you care. Even as a project manager, you need to find ways to show your people you care. It's not easy. Some people it doesn't come naturally to them. But you need to get to know your people. What's on their mind? What are they worried about? Do they have families? Are they married? Do they have kids? Where do they want to be in 5 years? And oh yeah, as a leader, you can't simply ask the question and walk away. One of your project team members says, well, I'd really like to be a project manager. I know I just started here, but I'd really like to be a project manager. As a leader, you help them realize where they want to go. You grow your people. Sometimes you're going to have older people on your team. And they're like, the last thing I want to do is be in charge of that. I want to be a subject matter expert. I don't want to be in charge of people. I like doing engineering. I like doing surveying. I don't want to lead other people. And that's fine. And I think there's a place here in Thrasher for everybody to get along. The leaders help grow their people. Help them realize their dreams and goals as well. As a leader, you have to harness emotion. And really what that comes down to is emotional intelligence. If you've never heard that term or you're not familiar with it, this is a book that was published in 17, I think. EQ like IQ, that's a slang for emotional intelligence. It's great. Emotional intelligence, quite simply, is about understanding your own emotions, understanding that other people have emotions, and then figuring out how to interact with them best, realizing their emotions. It's not about manipulation, but I will also tell you, as a leader, just because you have a bad day doesn't mean all your people have to have a bad day too. But we've seen that. Anybody experienced that? All the bosses having a bad day. All right, everybody duck and cover. That's not the way it's supposed to be. Emotional intelligence is one of those absolutely key leadership attributes that some people did well, and we didn't really have the verbiage for it. It didn't really come into our vocabulary until the early 90s, and a guy named Daniel Goleman. And we'll touch on that a little bit later. Leaders focus on doing the right thing. So you see, managers are about doing things right, and leaders doing the right thing. So Stephen Covey wrote a book called 7 Habits. Anybody read this? Good. Good on you. This is a hard taffy book. And what I mean by the hard taffy, you put a piece of hard taffy in your mouth, and it's like a rock. But you can taste it a little bit, right? The more you chew on it, the softer it gets. You just get all that goodie. It tastes a lot better. You got to spend some time chewing on Covey to really get it. It's a deep book. The first time I read it, I finished the first chapter and I said, I'm not reading that kind of thing. I don't get it. But about 10 years later, I came back. And I wish I just wasn't intellectually mature enough to grab onto it at that point. You got to get in the saddle. You got to stick to it. You got to chew on it to get the good out. It's good stuff. We'll talk a little bit more about the 7 habits. But Covey in his book talks about the difference between leaders and managers. He talks about a group of managers hiking a trail through the forest, right? They have their machetes, they're out beating down the vines and the elephant grass. You got some of the managers building a strengthening program, working on muscle development, another working rest and rotation plans, and they're just making a great trail through the jungle. And one guy climbs a tree, and he looks, he says, hey, we're going in the wrong direction. That's the leader. That's the leader. Inevitably, you'll have some manager say, hey, shut up, we're making great progress. That's a joke. All right, it's going to be one of those days. Okay, all right. That was funny. So, when you talk about project management, anybody here in project management professional? Anybody at PIP? Project management professional? No one? Okay. Are you familiar with what it is? It's a great certification. It's high demand. It's highly valued. Thrasher has a program that will help you get that if you go after it. It's about 200 questions across these 5 areas. Their weighted execution is the heaviest weighting. It's a tough certification to get, but it really will make you a better project manager. Now, I'm not going to talk to you about the expertise. They have experts coming in this morning and already and this afternoon talking about all these already, like Devanna was talking about the initiating part, right before I got here. And you'll have other things. Janelle will talk about some of the planning issues that come with project management. What I'm going to talk to you about is something that cuts across all those areas. It's communication. And no matter which phase of the operation you're in, you need to be able to communicate well with your team, with your client, with your boss. You'll need to communicate well with all those people. So what I need you to do now, I need you to get a partner. I need one, you're going to have to get up and move around. One partner is going to face forward, one partner is going to face back. The person facing towards the back of the room, guess what? You're an artist. You need a sheet of paper and something to write with. You are not allowed to talk. The person facing forward, you're going to describe a figure on the screen, and the other person's going to draw what you do. You're not allowed to look at what they're drawing. Okay? I don't see them moving. Go! Go, 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 go! Up, up, up! Quickly, Bernadette! Extraneous noise. Okay. What else?
Communication.
What? Okay, that's...
Couldn't communicate. It's one of the legs.
What part about the communication, right? It's a communication exercise. That's a good answer. What made it hard?
Vocal only, no visual.
Description. One way communication made this hard. What else? What else made it hard?
No visual cues. That was it.
So a lack of...
I couldn't talk back.
So we had the one-way communication, absolutely.
One method of communication.
One method, okay, good. One method of communication, right? Although the 2 guys in the back were talking away with their hands. Back to back. But they were like, oh no, it's here, it's in here. I cannot tell you how many times I've been in a meeting and whatnot, and I have to sit down a cup or a can of pop. I can't talk with something in my hands because I need my hands right. I got it. What else made it hard? What else made it hard? Somebody over here, I saw you draw the star. You had number 1 and you drew a star. What kind of star did you draw? Somebody over here drew like a 5-pointed star, didn't they?
Perception of what the shapes are and how big they are.
Okay. So, but develop out a little more.
So what he might consider a big shape is different than what I consider it. So the
Yeah.
5-pointed star or a 6-pointed star or whatever.
Yeah.
Perception.
So, so the idea is we all have different visual things in our head. We don't share those, right? We have different backgrounds, different experiences. And, for instance, if you go to Israel and you have somebody draw a star, how many points do you think they're going to draw? 6. There's a 6-pointed star on their flag, on their national flag. How many stars are on how many points are on the stars on our flag? 5. So that's just a cultural difference. I don't mean one's better than the other, it's just a difference. And when you have one-way communication and you have different backgrounds and experiences, that makes communication hard, doesn't it? But how many times in the Army we have this thing called a drive-by tasking? And so I was a young lieutenant, 7:30 in the morning, went and got my PT on, got sweaty, showered, changed, came to work, battalion commander in the building early as he always was, and he comes in and he says, Mark, I need you to build me 25 slides on the Ready First Combat Team Fire Support University. I'm like, okay, sir. Hey, Mark, I don't have time to explain. Make it happen. I'll be back at 17:30. Be at my desk. You understand? But sir, and he was gone. Drive-by tasking. So then I just spent the next 10 hours building slides for something that I wasn't really sure what it was. So we go back. So 17:30, I bust my rear end. I'm at his desk, 17:30, and he starts looking at it, right? And he looks at the first page and goes, okay. That was the title slide. Then he flips the page. Give me a red pen. Where's my red pen? And then he goes to work. By the time he was through those slides, it looked like somebody slaughtered a chicken on his desk. There was so much red ink. But he wasn't mad. He wasn't mad. I did what he wanted me to do, and he had shaped those expectations. We'll talk about his expectations in just a minute and how important they are. But the reality was, he gave me very little guidance. And he said, do it. And have you ever done that? Have you ever done that with people? Because you're busy, you're a leader, you're in charge. I can't hold your hand. You're a big boy. Get figured out. You ever heard that kind of speech, languages? Get it done. I'm not your nursemaid. But we do that. We do that sometimes. And a result, and then we're not happy with what we get. And then we think, wow, maybe I didn't really give them a good idea of what I truly wanted. So in design, there's a process called design by prototype, right? And that's the idea is that you just get a rough prototype, you put it out there and let people play with it, and then you get feedback, and then you incorporate the feedback and you build it. It's a great design process. It's kind of expensive, it can be a little bit slow, but it's really good because you're not worried about trying to get it perfect, go from 0 to perfect. You go to 0 to 1 and get it pretty good, then 1 to 2 is a little bit better, and so on until you hit that 10. That's perfect. But we do that with leadership sometimes, and we tell people what we want them to do. We don't tell them clearly what we want them to do. In a first-class organization filled with A players, which is what Thrasher is, you have a problem sometimes. And I know because I'm like that as well. So when I was a lieutenant, we had a mission one day, and I told the guys, I said, look, here's what we need to do. I need to do X, I need to do Y, I need Z. I'll be back in 2 hours. I expect us to be here. And then I'd go supervise another task. I came back after 2 hours. They were not where I wanted them to be. I'm a type A guy. Get it done. Results oriented, right? That's the way we are. So I just jump in there with both boots. Oh man, no, what are you doing? I'm just jumping and stomping on toes and ruffling feathers. I'm hurting feelings. Finally, a sergeant grabbed me, like, sir. I know we're not where you want us to be right now. We're waiting on Alpha Battery to clear the rifle range because we can't move on until they're gone. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. All right, good to go, Sergeant. But what had I already done? What had I already done? I'd already jumped in there, chewing a little butt, kicking a little booty, right? because things weren't getting done. I'm a take charge, make things happen kind of guy. The message, what was the message I was sending my troops? What was the message? Probably not the message I intended. The message I intended was we have to get things done. But what was the message I was actually sending them?
You ain't worth crap.
You don't know what you're doing. You're incompetent. I can't trust you to do what you're supposed to do. Even when I calm down and say, oh, okay, yeah, it makes sense. That message had already been sent. You can't walk that back very well. Now, people get used to that sometimes over time. If that's the way you want to operate and make everybody adjust to you. Or you can work and you can start by doing number 5, habit number 5, seek first to understand. Lead with a question. Figure out what's going on. Enable two-way communication. Enable two-way communication, right? And you do that when you ask that question. And that was a great answer. Thank you, Danny. Appreciate that. That is a genuine McMillion leadership, man. You can't get those on eBay. Now you can! But you lead with that question, and you seek clarity, you figure out what's going on, and then you take action. And what's interesting is in first-class organizations, that's more of a problem because of the type of people we are. Get it done! We tend to jump in there and want to just get results instead of saying, hey, wait, what's going on? This is not where I expected. What happened? And then letting people explain to you. Now you're having that conversation instead of a screaming, yelling, butt-kicking contest, which is not helping the problem, by the way. Seek first to understand. Ask that question. So once you ask the question, you got to listen, right? You got to listen with your eyes. What does that mean, listen with your eyes? What are you listening to with your eyes?
Read everything.
Non-verbals, which are what?
Body language.
Body language, right? What are they telling you? What's their body telling you? You can tell so much by the way a person's saying. So you have a social today, right? You do. At the end of the day, you have a social. I'll just tell you. I know. I cheated. I looked ahead. And what you're going to find, and this happened, Zach would do it again because he and I were talking before this even started. Zach loves tomatoes. You probably didn't know that. He lives to grow tomatoes. He plants them from the seed. And he carefully measures the water and the fertilizer. And then he loves them so much, he plots them on a graph. Their growth rates and the soil moisture content. I mean, he is into this stuff. And he is telling me about growing these tomato plants. And he starts studying, I'm like, oh, okay, yeah. And then he starts going about the moisture content versus the humidity in the air. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that's great, Zach. That's really cool. The words say I'm interested. I'm making eye contact. But what's my body doing? Yeah, right. Tomato plants. Cool. Nice. Hey, Zach loves tomato plants. I'm backing up. I'm not interested. But then all of a sudden, he starts talking about his Venus flytraps. I'm like, whoa, meat-eating plants. That's cool. And you see what I physically did. I turned into him. I opened up to him. Now I'm giving him the gift of my attention. He has me engaged because he's talking about plants that eat meat. That's cool. Tomato plants, whatever. Sorry, Zach, didn't mean to hurt your feelings about the tomato plants. But if you watch people at this social this evening, if you you should be talking to each other. What should be going. But inevitably, a couple of you, there'll be a time when you're kind of off by yourself. Watch the group and see who's talking to who, and look at their body language. And with you won't be able to hear the words, you'll be able to see who's interested, who's having a good, engaged conversation, and who's just, yeah, so I do leadership, what do you do? You know, that polite conversation is not engaging. Watching that body language. And you've got to do it when you talk to your people as well. By the way, when you talk to your boss, do the same thing. I'll share a story about that in a second. The only thing I've ever learned when I'm talking is that I'm boring someone. And I learned that because I'm listening with my eyes. And I can tell an audience when I'm boring an audience. I can see, And just a little secret for public speaking. If you're ever in that situation, you start seeing people do all, because nobody knows what's going on under the table, right? We don't know what they're doing. They're just sitting there concentrating on what we're saying, right? Nobody knows what's actually happening. We know what they're doing, right? They're goofing off. They're doing something else. But if you're ever in public speaking, you see you're going on, just drop sex in there. Just say something about sex. And watch the audience go, what? All of a sudden, you got it. They're interested. And then you say, but I'm not really talking about sex. But you got their attention. You got their attention. You got to be present. You got to be present. So there I was in Norway, right? That's how every war story starts. There we were. We were building this exercise, about 20 nations involved. We were in Estonia, we were going to have troops in Lithuania, we had troops coming from France, from Italy, from all over the place, moving a lot of bodies. Soldiers, sailors, airmen, politicians, we played political role of it as well. And I got to the point where I needed my boss's boss, a one-star general, to make a decision. It was pretty important. He had not been through an exercise before. So he really didn't, he was kind of learning more as he went than actually doing. But this was a decision above my pay grade. So I made an appointment. I sent him the read-ahead pack 1 week out, right? So he could read them at his leisure, not my urgent, right? That's another thing if you're working with a boss. Try to give them as much time as possible to digest whatever you need them. So I called the day before the appointment, verified with his admin, yep, general's waiting for you. So I go in there and I sit down. And he's sitting at his laptop, and he's, hey, go ahead, Mark, sit down. I'm ready. Go ahead, start. I'm listening. And I didn't do anything. I didn't say anything. No, Mark, really, I'm finishing up an email. I'm listening. Go ahead. And I said, sir, that's okay. I'll let you finish. Well, sorry about that. The screen's on. I said, no, sir, go ahead and finish your email. This is really important. Well, that kind of irritated him, right? Because essentially what he heard was this lieutenant colonel telling a one-star general what he should be paying attention to, which is true. That's what I was doing. But I knew this was an important decision, and I knew I needed him to be present. So he slaps his laptop down. All right, Mark, what is it? Kind of with that attitude. But then we talked about it, and I got the decision, and I got the right decision. Now generals, if you don't know anything about generals, they don't apologize very often. And they never admit they're wrong. But later on in that exercise, he kind of realized what had happened and how it had played out. And he realized what the consequences would have been had he not made a good decision. So he kind of let me know that he appreciated that I made him pay attention. The gift of attention is one of the greatest gifts you can give another person. These things are wonderful. I love my cell phone. I can do almost everything I need to do in my business on my cell phone. I can build a presentation on my cell phone if I wanted to. I wouldn't want to. It would be painful, but I could. But the big curse of these things is they're all the time. They're all the time. Who in here thinks they're a great multitasker? Wow. I hats off to you. I respect that. Because inevitably I get a lot of people say, oh yeah, I'm great. No, you're not. People don't multitask, do they? What do they do instead? Anybody know? Have we haven't read any of the research? That's what my dad used to tell me growing up. He said, Mark, you can go full fast or no fast, but don't go half fast. He told me that. That's funny, I thought. Okay, you're making me work for our people. What you do is you do task switching. When people think your brain is not that good to hold two unrelated tasks at the same time. So you're switching, boom, boom, boom. And some people are pretty good at switching back and forth, but inevitably your cognitive performance declines significantly. More importantly, with people, it's not about cognitive efficiency, it's about making sure that people know you appreciate them and you value. When you have a subordinate come to you with an issue, you may not think it's important. You may not, because you may know more. You may have more information, more context than they do. But what do they think?
It's important.
They think it's important. They brought it to the boss. They think it's important. So if you poo-poo them like, oh yeah, okay, right, whatever, sure. No, yeah, that sounds good, Ben, take care of it. You're not showing them the respect that's due them. You're not making them feel valued. Now, that may sound touchy-feely, but I'll tell you what, it matters. And I would tell you, I cannot tell you how many times I've talked to people and they have that phone out, I will just shut up. I'm not competing with your cell phone. I'm not. And inevitably they'll suddenly detect the silence. Sometimes it's minutes later. I have literally stood there with somebody like this, staring at them while they're on their cell phone for 2 minutes. And I'm like, what? I just wait until you're done. But usually I just leave. Usually I just walk off and leave, which is kind of rude, but I can be rude sometimes. Not my most redeeming feature. So when we talk about communication, there was a guy about 2,500 years ago. If you think about communication as a 10-yard distance, 2,500 years ago, this guy wrote about the first 8 yards of communication. Anybody know who it is?
Aristotle.
Who said that? Outstanding. Aristotle wrote a book called On Rhetoric about communication. It's hard read. I'll be honest with you. He's one of those old Greek guys, and I read it. It's kind of Greek to me. No, I'm kidding. It's tough to read through. But what he really did, almost, and in 2,500 years since, if he got us to the 8-yard mark, the last 2,500 years has probably moved us to maybe the 9-yard mark. It's just very incremental improvements over. He just nailed it. And it starts with ethos. Now, the way Aristotle used that word is about your personal credibility. It's your personal credibility. So what goes into your personal credibility? What do you think goes into it?
Confidence.
Confidence, absolutely. So what do people see, though? It's hard. They can't see confidence, you're right. But more than that.
You do what you say.
Okay, behavior and words are aligned. That's good. We'll talk about that a little more in a second. What do they start with? What's everybody's mother tell you about books?
They study.
Don't judge a book by its cover, right? But we still do, don't we? We still do. I teach this stuff and I get reminded. Let me tell you a good bathroom story. Everybody likes a good bathroom story, right? So there I was in business down in Charleston, coming back, stopped at Flatwoods, Go-Mart, good West Virginia company, right? Filling up with gas, going to the bathroom. For those of you who don't use the men's room very often, one of the unspoken rules of etiquette in the men's room is you don't look around when you're in the men's room. You know, you take care of what you're taking care of. And you're not like, hey, what's going on? Hey, I love those shoes, but no, I don't know the way it is in the ladies' room, but that's the way it is in the men's room. So I'm in there using the bathroom, I had a girl, and I hear a man and a boy come in behind me. I'm not looking around, because that's what you don't do. But it's his father with his little boy. The little boy's probably about 4. He was potty trained, but he was one of his first visits to a public restroom, right? And I don't know how you feel about public restrooms, but I kind of think they're nasty, and you know. But the dad is using such a loving tone of voice. It's like, hey, don't touch that. No, here's what you, here, put the toilet paper on the seat. And he's just talking them through using the bathroom. And he's doing it in such a warm, loving tone of voice. I thought, man, that is one heck of a dad. Because, you know, sometimes I'm barking and snapping at my kids. I'm not always that loving in my tone of voice to my children. And he was just doing great. So I finished, went out, checked out. And I'm out there, I'm in checkout line getting the coat, and I see them come out. This guy has sleeve tats up one sleeve, one arm. He's in a tanker, a white tank top. We used to call them wife beaters when I was a little kid, you know what I'm talking about? So, you know, he had a sleeve tattoo over here, a bunch of tats up there, gauges, greasy, long, greasy, nasty hair, dirty ball cap, nasty, just dirty, nasty pants. But he's holding that little boy by the hand. I was like, holy crap, Mark. It was like a kick in the gut. I'm judgmental. I have biases. We all have biases. And I try to be conscious of mine. But I thought to myself, if I'd have seen that guy and not heard him and not known how he was with his little boy, I said, what a scumball. What a dirtbag. And I would have made sure to put as much distance between me and that guy as possible. I would have judged that book by its cover. Because I had my eyes focused on the wall in front of me, not looking around, I got to know a little more about that person. So even though I teach this stuff, I still make these mistakes. You don't judge a book by its cover. So there's two takeaways for that from you in your personal credibility. One, use that to your advantage. How do you do that? How do you use it to your advantage? Knowing that.
Look the part.
Dress the part. Look the part, right? So it's how you dress. It's your personal hygiene. You ever work with somebody who doesn't practice good personal hygiene? I have. I've had that conversation. It's not a pleasant one. It's really distracting. And it doesn't make you think great of their work, right? And it doesn't make you want to work with them either. But how you dress, how you talk. What else do we use? What do we use on our signature blocks in email a lot? What do you see all those little things after people's names? Credentials, like what? PE, right? Professional engineer. Sometimes you see a whole string of numbers. I don't even know what that. Sometimes I have to like look them up what they are. I don't even know what they are. You know, MSIE. What? I don't know what MSIE is. Master of Science in Information Engineering. I didn't know that was a thing, but I got an email from somebody. You know, that's what that project manager professional, PMP, that carries weight. When you have, that gives you a certain level of face validity when you talk. That's not going to get you everything you want necessarily, but it tells you, it gives people an idea of who you are professionally. Hey, I put that extra effort to get these things. I am a professional engineer. So when I'm talking to a professional engineer, I'm not going to ask things like, well, you know what a force vector is, don't you? Well, of course he is. He's a professional engineer. He knows what wind shear is. He knows what a distributed load versus a point load is. He knows what you got to account for snow load on a bridge versus whatever. You know, I know a little bit enough to be dangerous right now. But that's one way, is you cultivate that. You know what you are, dress like it. You come to work looking like a scumbag, don't expect people to respect you. Now maybe they will have to get to know you a little bit, but you put yourself in a hole. It's just like if I showed up wearing a Black Sabbath concert t-shirt and ripped up jeans, and I'm going to talk to you about professionalism. Am I going to be effective? Maybe eventually. But the problem is I put myself deep in that hole, didn't I? Then I got to climb out of that hole to get you to listen to me first. So what's the other thing about that? So what's the other thing? So I said there's two things to understand about ethos. One, for you, what else? You don't judge a book by its cover, right? You realize maybe not everybody understands that. So you know, maybe Jeff comes to work, Jeff works in utilities out of Charleston. Maybe Jeff doesn't understand that wearing his favorite t-shirts from the 80s is not cool anymore. Yes, it is. You know, so Jeff may not understand that in this workplace that he's expected to wear a collared shirt. So he doesn't know. He just doesn't know those standards and norms yet. Maybe he's a new employee. Don't judge him by the way he looks. Give him that chance. Give him that chance to understand him a little bit. Okay? Two ways to understand how that works. Pathos is the emotional content of your message, right? So you're in an engineering firm. You're in a first-class engineering firm. A lot of black-white conversation. Engineers tend to think right, wrong, black, white. The bridge is good, the bridge collapses, right? Bridges don't usually just slowly sway, right? They kind of collapse catastrophically sometimes. Anyway, but the idea is understand who you're talking to. And when you're pitching business, for instance, like Devana was talking about, part of that intel brief, who's in the room? Who's the decision maker? Oh, this guy may be the city manager, but he's got a bachelor's degree in sociology. You've got to be careful with generalizations, but generally speaking, you're talking to someone with a sociology degree, they're going to be a little more susceptible to emotional influence. Versus the second way, which is logical influence, okay? That doesn't mean you just go in there and pound. It's not election year, right? What do you get? All of the political messages, they're all pounding your emotional buttons. Hate this, fear this, love this, vote for me, I'm holding a kitten. Look at me, I have a flag, I'm patriotic. You know, where's the beef? Like the lady from Wendy's commercial in the 1980s. Jeff remembers that. You know how the other ones in here. The idea is realize there's a balance you strike. So if you're dealing with somebody with a non-engineering background, maybe they need a little more emotion. Just think about how the kids are going to feel when they walk into that new school for the first day that we're going to build for you. Picture that and you start tapping into those feelings that they're going to see. Imagine the pride in the community when they see that's our school that we built. We're going to deliver that to you. Versus when you're talking to someone with a little more, maybe a science background, a technical background, engineering background, maybe they need a more logic. You know, we're going to build you this school at 10% less than the competition. And by the way, not only will we meet every technical specification, we will exceed those specifications because our firm holds to a higher standard than that. There will not be a tornado. This will be the tornado refuge site because every other building in this town may be leveled, but this school will be standing. Now you're talking about, well, that's kind of a mix because you're tapping into that fear too, a little bit, and pride, but the idea of the technical side. So logos is your data, your logic, your facts, right? And engineers are really, really good at that. But you can't just be that. You've got to hit a mix of the right message. Okay? Does that make sense? If you have questions, don't hesitate to ask. I love questions because, one, I know somebody's paying attention. Two, I understand what I'm not making clear. All right? So face-to-face communication starts with the words. All right? I'm not going to show you the video clip from friends, but words matter. And you got to pick the right words. So when you're dealing with an engineer, which you do sometimes in this company, right? You know, you don't talk about, well, you know, when you've got that little thing with the hangover and you know, that little thingy and the what do they call it, you know. No, you say, hey, we're going to cantilever this thing out 16 feet and the moment arm is going to cause it. You use the right language, right? At the same time, if you're talking to a non-engineer, then you don't start talking about cantilevering, moment arms, force back, blah. No, see, we're going to have an unsupported overhang here. But it's going to be engineered, the support here is going to more than, and you explain it in plain English. Engineers use engineer language. You pick the right words for the right audience, right? Does that make sense? Some of you engineers are like, that guy didn't know anything. Tone of voice. Tone of voice. So, Jeff, come here. Jeff, come here! I don't want you to come over here. So is there a difference in that? It's the 3 words, right? Jeff, come here. Is there a difference in what I communicated?
It's still not there.
Is there a difference in what I communicated? Absolutely, right? The first thing I say, Jeff, come here. He's like, oh, okay. I'm going to do something. Sure, no problem. I'll help out. The second time I say, I give that drill sergeant a bark. He's like, is this a fight? Do I need to bring a chair over here? What's going on? You don't know. But sometimes we get excited and you got people full of passion and they want to get things done and they get frustrated and they start barking at people. And then you don't understand because somebody starts barking back at you. And I'm just trying to get this done. Well, you're yelling at me. Because that's a natural reaction. We'll talk about that as well. Tone of voice really, really matters. And managing your tone of voice can be really hard, especially when you're frustrated. And that's when you got to take a split second. Hey, Zorn, I'm not angry, but I am frustrated. We're way, you know, now we're having a conversation, and Zorn doesn't feel like I'm here chewing his butt. Or I'm not pointing fingers and blaming him. We're having a conversation. And that's a better place to be. Much better place to be. Body language, we talked about body language already. And it matters. Same thing. Subordinates talking to you, they think it's a big deal. Maybe you don't. Give them the respect. Give them the gift of your attention. And nothing, well, I'll tell you what it doesn't look like. Letting someone go is never easy, Peters. That's the guy behind the desk saying that, right? That's a funny cartoon. It's okay to laugh. It's funnier than that, but okay, I'll take it. Why is it funny? You know, dissecting humor is an ugly business sometimes, but this is pretty easy. Why is this funny?
Because you make it up look like it.
Well, you're back.
He's not stressed.
It's pretty easy to him.
Yeah, exactly. His words aren't matching his body language. This guy just figured out, oh my God, we just bought a house. This is an earth-shaking, world-altering event for this guy. My kid just started college. I got to pay tuition in a week. I just bought a house. How am I going to pay for my kid's surgery? This guy's world just got shaken. And this guy's like, it's not easy, but you're fire beaters, right? That's the humor in it. It's funny because it doesn't match. And that's why you got to get these things together. And someone said earlier, talking about people do what they say. That's how you build trust. That's how you build confidence. Other people build confidence in other people, in you. And when you get those things all together, you have alignment of communication. That's when you're communicating at your very, very best, is when you have all those things together. Does that make sense? It's really hard. The trouble with being angry and being frustrated in tone of voice and body language, it's hard to tell the difference. It's hard to tell the difference. You may be just completely upset and annoyed that we're not getting done, but Joe hears an elevated tone of voice, tensed up body, red in the face. He's like, we're going to fight. And I'm like part of his team. And he's yelling at me. No, I'm trying to get things done. I'm really frustrated. And one of the things you do is you just tell people up front that. Sometimes you can't control your physicality, right? Sometimes I get angry, so I get red and sweaty. But I say, Joe, man, I am not angry with you, but I am really upset. So I need to talk to you about it. I've communicated, I'm opening, I'm being transparent with him. I'm opening a good communication channel with him. Now he knows how to interpret my body language. That okay, he's not angry at me, he's upset. It's hard to differentiate sometimes, especially if you don't know people very well. So let's talk about some very specific tactics that you can use to help you in your job as a project manager. And a back read. Now I will tell you, some of you are going to look at that, and that is a BFO. You may know what a BFO is? Blind flash of the obvious. Okay? It means other things too, but that's what it means. You tell people what you want them to do. And then, which I know that's obvious, right? Then you tell them, now tell me what you think I want you to do. But you make them use their own words, right? A parrot can repeat what you say. Does that parrot have understanding? Not necessarily. That's why you want people to use their own words. So when I say, Susan, I need to see the fourth quarter training requirements. I want to see what you think we need to do in fourth quarter training requirements wise. What do we need to continue our upward slope of excellence that we are in this organization? Then I need her to tell me that. Now sometimes I may ask her, I may not ask for it in the moment. If it's a fairly straightforward task, good. Now, then what I just tell you to do, and then have them do it, right? But like when I'm asking Susan for fourth quarter training requirement, I might say, hey Susan, come back to me tomorrow and tell me how you're approaching this. I don't want the answer. I want you to show me how you're going to work this out. Right? So I'm doing two things. One, I'm setting expectations. We're going to talk about one more second. But I'm giving her time to process. And what am I doing when I do that? What am I warding off?
The echo?
Miscommunication.
What? Which is?
Miscommunication.
Miscommunication, right? It's the idea. So later in the Army, I told you about how the battalion commander gave me that drive-by tasking, right? Later in the Army, I learned that when a boss did that, and they were like, I'm too busy, I would sometimes grab them by the arm. But I would get their attention and I'd say, hey boss, do you have time for me to do this twice? And you immediately see the ball go, no. Okay boss, well I don't understand what you're asking me to do. I need some guidance. I need some more guidance. Maybe I'm stupid or slow or whatever, boss. But I don't think I can get done what you want done based on what you've told me so far. I need clarification. I need to have that two-way conversation. Now, I kind of made it kind of rough right there as I shared it with you, but you can find a softer tone of voice or better way to communicate that. And realize that when people are asking you, they're not asking you to make your life difficult. They're asking because they want to get it done, and they want to get it right. And that's another benefit of being on a varsity team. Everybody wants to get things right. You just don't have a lot of mediocre players in this organization. People want to get things done, and they want to get it done well. They're committed to excellence. And that's the beauty of being part of Thrasher. Backers create that alignment of effort. So you don't have people chasing wild gooses down the rabbit hole. You got people getting done what needs to get done as it needs to get done, instead of wasting effort. That alignment of effort. So that's a Humvee from the early 90s. When I was a platoon leader, I had one just like this, and I had a driver. A kid named Morrison from Missouri. Nice kid, not a rocket scientist, but a good, solid kid. So when a platoon sergeant tells you, picks a driver for the lieutenant, he says, look, you got two things, driver. You make the lieutenant happy and keep his Humvee in good working order. That's all you got to do, because that keeps him out of my business. Platoon sergeant, okay. So these doors are vinyl. They tear easy. This was before the Army figured out that somebody may shoot a Humvees on the battlefield. The Iraqis help us understand that better. But anyway, at that point, we just had vinyl doors. My door was ripped up, and it was unserviceable. You can still use the Humvee without the doors. You have seat belts, everything works. But we were getting ready to go to Hohenfels, Germany in late October, and it gets really cold and snowy. It's in the mountains of Germany, and it's bad weather. And I didn't want to go there without my vinyl door, because if nothing else, it keeps the rain out and the snow off you. So I didn't have a Humvee door. So this was in the early 90s. People were enjoying what's called the peace dividend. The Berlin Wall fell in '89. Everybody was saying, oh, we got the peace dividend. So we were only getting the bare necessities in terms of what we needed to do our business in the Army at that point. So on Friday afternoon, we're going down, we did the thing called motor pool closeout. I walk the line, make sure the vehicles are just right dressed, and everything's ready to do maintenance on Monday. Now I get to my Humvee and I say, oh golly gee, shucky darns, dad's shame it, I still don't have a Humvee door. Or words to that effect. That's not exactly what I said, but something like that. And my driver had it on order. He'd done everything right. It was just taking forever today to come in. So I didn't think a thing about it. I come in Monday morning, I got a Humvee door. Woo! Morrison, great job, buddy. We got a Humvee door. All right, we are ready to rock and roll Hohenfels now. And 2 rows over here, a major screaming. Where's my gosh darn Humvee door? Words to that effect. And I'm thinking, and I just, it's like almost cartoon-like moment where you go, hey, oh, hey. So I had another great demonstration of one-way communication with the major, which involved me staying in a position of attention and him talking to me and explaining things.
Did you keep the door?
No, we gave the door back. Sir, you don't need a door. And then I explained to my private that, hey, varsity is not part of your job description, and I applaud your initiative. I really didn't get mad. Even at that young age, it kind of dawned on me what I had done. I had created that situation because as a leader, someone is always listening to what you say. And they're always looking to find the meaning behind the comments. What's the thought process? Because people, especially in a strong organization, people are leaning forward. They want to get ahead of the game. They don't want to just do what you say. They want to anticipate what you as a boss are going to say and get there before you ask for it. Because then they shine. Because then they look better. And they want the organization to be successful. As a leader, you're constantly speaking through a megaphone. Whether you want to be or you don't want to be. You can't help it. You cannot turn it off. And believe you me, plenty of leaders say, well, just between us, God. Nobody. It's just like talking to a newspaper reporter. There is no off the record talking to a journalist. You can think that if you want to. But there is no off the record. And the same is even more so when you're a leader in an organization. You do not have the luxury of casual speech. You've got to watch what you say all the time. And it's not fun. It's a burden of leadership. If it were easy, everybody would do it. Right? Then you have these things going on. As a leader, if you want to destroy your organization, if you want us to the quickest way, right there, you start rumors and pass them on, and you engage in gossip. Those are like cancers. Rumors and gossip are like cancer. Rumor is kind of like skin cancer. You can deal with it. But if you don't take care of it, it's going to cause some long-term problems. But you have time to deal with it. Gossip is like pancreatic cancer, which if you don't know, that's one of the most aggressive cancers. And if you don't deal with it really quick, it's going to jump to the stomach, the liver. It's going to kill you really quick. My father-in-law was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. 3 weeks later, he passed away. Boom. It is no kidding. You deal with that. Not only as a leader can you not do that, you cannot tolerate it. Rumors are the hardest part as a leader. I will say, this is easy. We're all taught not to do this. That's really not hard. Rumors are hard because companies have plans. They may have layoffs. They have mergers, acquisitions. There's always things cooking, and they may not want to share that with everybody yet for good reason. But inevitably, somebody talks, right? Like in James Bond movie, LaShifra said somebody talked. I'm not breaking anyway. It's a good movie. You have to squelch the things and deal with them. So what's communicate? Expectations. So I go back to that drive-by tasking story. My battalion commander was not upset with me. I thought he was going to kill me. When he started ripping and sawing on not those slides with that red ink pen, I thought, oh my God, I'm dead. I'm not going to get my first promotion in the Army. My career is done. He wasn't upset. He didn't expect me to get it right. He didn't really know what he wanted. He knew he needed a straw man. You familiar with that expression? A straw man to kind of shape your expectation. Maybe it just tells you what you don't want. That's all he was looking for. But I sweated bullets for 10 hours when Harvard Graphics 3.0. PowerPoint wasn't even a twinkle in Bill Gates' eye yet. And we were happy to have Harvard Graphics 3.0. Anybody ever use Harvard Graphics? You children. But if the boss had just told me that, hey Mark, take an hour, put together these slides, give me something to look at, all right? I don't want you to spend all day on it. If he had shaped those expectations, he would have lowered my stress level immensely. I was a brand new second lieutenant. I wanted to blow the boss out of the water. That was my boss's boss's boss. I wanted to do great things. I thought I was going to be a general. But he didn't shape those expectations. He wasn't upset with me, which made it better in the end, but he calls me on. That's what communicating expectations do, is help your people understand what's going on, what you expect of them. It could be something like, maybe in January you talk to your people about, hey, I know things are kind of slow now, but come second half of March, you can expect us to go pedal to the metal, and it's going to stay till the first week of deer season, because that's our busy season, because we're in a seasonal business. Or it may be, hey, I need everybody to project their vacations because we can't send everybody to Myrtle Beach in July. We're going to have to stagger. I can't send everybody on vacation at once because shape your expectation. Let them know what you expect from them. Anybody have a job description that listed everything they were supposed to do? Nobody? No, it would be a book, wouldn't it? It'd be a book this thick, and by the time you finish reading it, it would be out in a revised edition. That's why expectation. And people, so when I hear leaders, two things I hear leaders say, well, everybody knows that, or common sense says. When I hear that, what I hear usually is a leader making excuses for poor communication on their part. And there are things like, I really didn't think I had to communicate to you that you need to be here at 9 o'clock sharp every morning, because I didn't say that. I just thought everybody knew start time 9 o'clock means you'd be here at 9 o'clock. You didn't make it explicit. And I will tell you, everybody looks at me and says, oh, well, you're an Army guy, your family's probably highly disciplined and runs a My family is never on time to anything. I lied to my wife about what time things start, so we can be on time sometimes. I don't like doing that, but I found it necessary with 27 years of marriage. If I want to be there to start at 9 o'clock, I say, honey, it starts at 8:45, so we need to, my wife seems to think that's when you leave the house, when it starts, and it's frustrating sometimes. But you share those expectations, because a job description cannot describe everything that someone needs to know. Standards, same thing. You have standards. As a project manager, you may have, just say for instance, your client wants a weekly update. He wants an email Friday noon or a phone call of the status of his project. So as a project manager, you may tell your project team, hey look guys, I have an obligation to our client. At noon I have to give them this update. I need you to have everything you've done in the past week by 1700 or 5 o'clock on Thursday. That gives me some time to process it and go back for clarification, ask a few questions, and be ready to brief them. You've set a standard for your project team. And you communicate that, then people can meet it. People cannot do what they don't know they're supposed to do. It's crazy, I know. They ought to be able to read your mind, but they can't. And that's what happens sometimes when you communicate poorly. Performance feedback is critically important, good and bad. I didn't bring the book because it fell apart and wore it out. There's a book called The 1 Minute Manager by Ken Blanchard. Phenomenal book. It's an easy read. It's a great leadership book to start reading if you want to read about leadership. But one of the things that comes out of that book that just blows me away when I read it was catch people doing something right. Catch people doing something right. At West Point for 4 years, in the Army for 22 years, I am programmed to catch people doing something wrong. You do inspections not to see what's right, to see where people are short. That's the mentality in the military. It's very critical. And I struggle with that sometimes. But when you catch someone doing something right and you say, hey, great presentation this morning, Jeff. That was really good job. When you do that, you've reinforced people. What gets reinforced gets repeated. So it's good and bad. It needs to be informal and formal. That's a whole other class. We're not going to go into any more depth on that today. This is one of the best tools that I've ever learned. So we talked about somebody yelling at you, right? And so what is your first response when somebody yells at you? For many people, yell back. I do. I want to yell back. Hey, we won't go? It's a fight. Okay, let's bow up. Let's go, boy. You talking to me like that? Who are you talking to? You talking to me like that? And then it spirals up and it's not a discussion. And it doesn't move anything forward. So when someone gets really upset, and this happens, and you may not know if they're frustrated or angry. You know they're spiraled up. You've got to deal with it. Give the other person a chance to off-gas. Just absorb it. Be that sponge. Don't interrupt them. Sooner or later, this is a scientific fact, they have to breathe. Sooner or later, they're going to run out of breath. And that's where you send the first powerful signal that you're not here to fight. Find something to agree with. You have to be careful, because they may be angry about a misunderstanding or something that's not right. So you can't just agree with everything they're saying. My fallback is, yes, it's a bad situation. Someone screaming at me, that's a bad situation in my world. Yes, it's a bad situation. You sent a signal now, right? What do people expect? When you yell at them, they expect you to yell back most often. You're not yelling back. You're saying, yes, this is a bad situation. That's a signal. I'm not here to fight. And you'll see them. And you'll see the body reaction, that kind of tension release a little bit, and they step back. And then ask the question. Go back to Covey, right? See first to understand, and then to be understood. Make sure you understand what they're really fired up about. Ask that question. Again, now you got to make sure it can't be a question like, now are you sure that's what happened, Zach? Right? Because that's not a question, is it? That's an accusation of questioning his competence. That's not the signal you want to send. What you want to say, Zach, so if I understand correctly, you're really angry because, I'm so sorry, Ben is not on time for work every day, and you think that's unfair? Is that what you're angry about? So I say, oh, right? Or whatever it is. Ben's bright early every day. Right? Now things have calmed down. Now you add your point of view. Now you add context. And it's kind of like when I was hooping and hollering my platoon because they weren't where I thought they should be. And the sergeant finally like, sir, I know we're not where he wants to be. It's because alphabetic. Oh, okay. See, the sergeant added context. And immediately, it was a misunderstanding. Amazing amount of lost tempers and misunderstandings, or lost tempers result from misunderstanding, where they don't know the whole story, or they know part of the story, but they don't know that full context. And then that's wonderful. You add some little context, and like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Sure, he does. You know, he helps his blind mother cook her breakfast every day, so yeah, we give him a break. He comes at 9:15 instead of 9 o'clock. Right? Okay, a lot of jokes aren't funny, I got it. Now, if it's not a misunderstanding, it is a problem, then you action plan. Now you figure out what's the way ahead. How do we get through this? What's amazing is how many times the person that is blowing up is also the solution. So many times. Now maybe why they're blowing up, right? Because Brian has screwed stuff up again, and Ben's got to pick up his slack. And Ben's coming to me, the supervisor. He's like, Brian, it's the 5th time this month, and here I am, right? But Ben knows he's the solution. But he's really angry. He needs to let somebody know about it. Now, as a supervisor, as a leader, as a project manager, I need to take that note and I need to go back and say, hey, Brian, what's going on? You know, that's a different conversation. And that's not necessarily, maybe I tell Ben, you know what, I'm going to talk to Brian about this and try to make sure I understand what's going on. Notice, I'm not throwing Brian under the bus. I'm not saying, hey, you're right, Ben, that Brian's a dirtbag. We need to fire his butt, don't we? I'll make it happen. No. That's not the conversation you have. Even though that may be true, and that's maybe what you intend to do, that's not that conversation you have with Ben. Okay? He'll see that. When Brian stops coming to work every day, he'll see what happened. He'll know that conversation happened. But that's not what you share with Ben, right? You don't want to disrespect other employees just because somebody's angry. You don't disrespect who they're angry with either, right? Just to wrap things up. I know you're ready to stretch your legs a little bit. You got to be a good listener. And I know that because people think of a leadership role as a broadcast. You're transmitting, you're giving direction and guidance, but you got to be a good listener. That's how you build. That's part of how you build a team. You got to use a lot of leader tools. You got to bring them together. We talked about those. We talked about brief facts. We talked about the 5 A's, the megaphone effect. These tools will help you do your job better if you apply them. If you just leave them here, if you just leave them in this really cool little project manager book they made for you, and you never use them, then we've wasted our time. I wasted my time, you wasted your time in here. You got lunch, right? Any questions? Any questions for me? About anything I've talked about? We covered a lot of material. Yeah.
You have a reading list.
I read all the time. But yeah, I mean, the books I referenced today, EQ Applied, Aristotle on Rhetoric, not a great, I will tell you, it's just hard to read. There's a lot of people that have rewritten this stuff in everyday speech. Huh?
Print's small, too.
It is, and there's no pictures. I mean, I got the book and a new set of crayons that were one day into a picture. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. This is one of the best leadership books I've ever read. It's called The Speed of Trust. And it's written by the son of this guy. So Stephen R. Covey wrote 7 Habits. Stephen M. R. Covey wrote The Speed of Trust. This stinks of 7 Habits. You smell it all through it. But it's good stuff. And it's a lot more, it's not a taffy book. Taffy, this is just like a Snickers bar. It's yummy. It's good.
Mark, if you email those to me, I will get them out to the group.
Okay, we'll do. Good question. Thank you. Other questions? Okay.
Well, how about, we always talk about, like, this is a big thing these days with respect to management, 7 habits, highly effective people, but the old management skills still, it's got to work somewhere, man. That's how I came up people yelling, screaming. Guys I'm serious, I'm sitting here.
No, I think you're making a really good, interesting
You know what,
point.
like, I mean, why do we have millennials? They have all these choices. You know, people say, oh, we get these workers, we can't keep one in a couple of months. You know, I think we're too soft. Military express
I don't know that to be true. That was an experiment. I think it's a really interesting point you made. And the question, and the reality is the world has changed around us.
Right.
You know, I will tell you, so when my dad grew up, my grandfather would say, Jim, go get some firewood.
Right.
And my dad would be like, yes, sir, and go get firewood. When I grew up, my dad would say, Mark, go get some firewood. I say, oh, okay, Dad, let me just finish this section. Okay, I'm on it. And I would go get firewood. My son, I tell my son, Stephen, go get some firewood. Stephen, go get some firewood. I got to reach out and touch him because he's on the iPad, right? Stephen, go get some firewood. Why? Well, I want to initiate an exothermic process to raise the ambient air temperature. Go get the firewood so we warm the house, son. The world has changed. Now, I did not raise my kids the way my parents raised me, and my parents didn't raise me the way they were raised. In fact, I have 4 kids, and I will tell you that I don't think any of my 4 kids have the same 2 parents, same biological mother and father. But the reality, when Isabella, my firstborn, was born, we go to the grade school, and she climbed on the jump. I'm like, oh, okay, you know, I wouldn't let her more than 6 inches away from me because she was so precious and delicate and fragile. We had pictures made every month. Second kid comes along, and it's like, oh, you're okay. Rub some dirt in it. You're all right. Good. Those boys come along, and like, where are the boys? I haven't seen them in a couple hours. I don't know where they are. You know, so none of those kids have had the same parents, even though they all came from the same egg and sperm, the same DNA, but not the same parents. But society has continued to change. So people are not growing up in the same environment that you did. And I think that's why there's what I have found is that communication, accountability, respect, and trust. Those are the 4 pillars of leadership that I build all my material on. I think those are timeless. But the way we put those into effect has changed over time. I will tell you, I think Alexander the Great, when he conquered most of Asia, he was all about communication, accountability, respect, and trust. But it was not the same way that it was with Douglas MacArthur or George S. Patton, both strong military leaders. So I think the world has just changed, and we have to adapt. You know, and it's the same thing about, you know, why in the 1920s was it funny and everybody laughed when actors wore blackface. It's not funny now. The world has changed around us. We may not like it. You know, I have a cousin who applied to college or whatever. She had 27 gender choices. What? I don't know. 27 or something like that. Male, female. What? It's a different world. We live in a different world now. I'm not completely comfortable with it. It doesn't matter if I'm comfortable with it. It's the world. I can't change that. And I don't adapt to the world, then I'm going to be pushed off to the side and left behind. And believe you me, there's times when I want to throttle my kids. You don't spank kids very much anymore. You really run a risk if you spank a kid. It's a different world. And I'm not saying kids should be hit or should not be hit. I'm just saying that there are many times when I probably got my butt busted that my kids did not, because society's changed around us. So, as a project manager, you need management and leadership. You don't have any leadership, any supervisory position. You got to have both of those. And leadership starts with communication. So the challenge I have for you, I want you to write down. Don't think about it. I want you to write them down. 2 things that you're going to do, take from what I've given you today and apply it to help you do your job better. Or your family. The beautiful thing about these are life skills as well as leadership skills. You know, I will tell you many times I have gone off with my kids instead of asking a question because I misunderstood and I thought they were doing something wrong and they weren't, but I yelled at them anyway.
I wish I'd have said, maybe I should just be patient and ask a question. I'd be better off. I'd have a better relationship with my kids. Probably. Maybe not. So identify those 2 things. Write them down. If you write them down, we got a chance you might do them. If you don't write them down, there's a chance we won't move forward. We won't grow. The next thing I want you to identify is some of the ways you're going to incorporate this into a project team. You know, maybe it's, I'm going to write my standards down. As I establish standards, I'm going to write them down and distribute them to the team. Instead of just have these, I said it today, so it's a standard until I say something different. You know, that kind of shifty, quicksand leadership undermines morale and your own credibility as well. I really appreciate your time. I really appreciate your attention. If you need to get hold of me, I don't charge by the question. I've got a website, email, mark@McMillionLeadership.com, McMillion, like $1,000,000. Text. I'm on Twitter. Twitter is about leadership. It's not me ranting and raving about politics or anything like that. I share leadership articles and leadership thoughts if you want to follow me on Twitter. Thank you very much for your time.